Welcome to the Connect Safe event this morning. My name is Katrina Webb, and it's indeed my absolute pleasure to be your MC today. Welcome to all of you in the room. This is so wonderful to have you in the room. I hope you've enjoyed that feeling of coming into this space. I know when I walked in this morning as somebody that is used to speaking on stage like this, I had this quite emotional experience walking into a space. It is so wonderful to be here. However, we also have people joining us across Australia, so welcome to you as well. Now, we are meeting on the lands of the traditional Kaurna people today, and we'd like to pay their respects to elders past, present, and also the future. Now, firstly, a huge thank you to all of you for joining us here in the room. They say decisions are made by those that turn up. If the attendance here this morning is an indication on how this industry is going to recover, we can start this morning definitely with some hope. Now, to our friends joining us from around the country, we'd also like to thank you for your time. I do say that we miss you all, and we are really looking forward to the days when we can all meet again very soon. Now, we are here today thanks to the Adelaide Convention Bureau, a small team of passionate people who lead the business events industry here in South Australia. Their goal is to provide connections from a query through to a legacy in order to drive economic growth for the state. Now, today's event is a perfect opportunity to do so in a very COVID-safe way. We are going to hear from some of the industry experts here in South Australia and also from across the country. Now, those joining us in person are going to get an opportunity also to meet in the exhibition hall and to hear firsthand from venues across the state and organisers about what they're doing to keep your delegates safe and to provide solutions for your next event. Now, we are being joined today by our friends from Health SA, who are here to gain a better understanding of a business event in the current climate and how they can be held safely as we all move forward. Now, because you are all events people this morning, I'm going to talk you through what we've done in terms of planning for today's event. To think that it was only 7 months ago when we lived in a world of no restrictions. Very different to what I'm looking out to the audience in the room here. I know I've got a virtual audience, but I've got a fabulous checkerboard of people sitting out in front of me. Who ever thought 7 months ago that we would be faced with this situation? We lived in a world of a packed plenary. This room would have been packed. We would have had buffet lunches. We would have had networking drinks. We would have had gala dinners. We didn't use hand sanitizer. In fact, I'm a physiotherapist, so I'm very used to using it in a hospital, but I'd never used it before out of that space. And we didn't even know what social distancing meant. Now I even hear my children talk about this concept of social distancing. I find it, really strange where we're living. So we call that zone the green zone. Now, as you can see on the slides, based on the current restrictions in South Australia, we are positioned in what we would call the orange zone. However, when we plan today's event, taking some elements of the harsher restrictions from the red zone, we're going to use to give you confidence to know that if things do start to change and become tighter and more restricted again, you have the ability still to meet safely. So with this in mind, I'm going to go through a few different housekeeping items. I will say if you have your phones with you, please make sure, if you're in the room with me, that you do turn them onto silent. Bathrooms are located in the entrance foyer, and please be mindful of the capacity limits noted on the door. Now, we do have designated COVID marshals in attendance today to monitor COVID safe practices during the event. The COVID marshal will be wearing a green high visibility vest and also a lanyard. There are also some additional staff around to help us move safely from place to place and for all of us to continue to be mindful of social distancing. And you may see people today that you haven't seen for a long time. Remember to do the elbows, no high fives, no hugs, no handshakes. Okay, so keep that one in mind. Hand sanitizers are available at the entrance of the event. They're also throughout the exhibition hall and also in the bathrooms. Now, because this event is under 150 people, this is amazing. We're allowed to eat, to have food and beverages while we're standing. Please also maintain physical distance, as we've talked about, where possible, and observe the floor decals and also signage. If you haven't already done so, we'd really appreciate you to download the COVID Safe app. Now, this is a contactless event. We already talked about that from a physical distancing point of view, but it is a contactless event. There are to be no business cards shared. So what you can do, though, is connect. We have the event app, and you can also connect with people on LinkedIn. So we have this amazing ability to still grow connections and network, just don't share the physical business cards. And for those joining us virtually, you won't have to worry about any of those. I do hope you know where your own toilets are. And I do hope that you're sitting there with some great tracksuit pants and Ugg boots on to keep you comfortable during this time where we've all had to dress from the bottom down today. Now, it wouldn't be a Bureau event without a few door prizes at the end, so make sure you hang around till the end of this event. There are some fabulous prizes that we're offering today. An example to those, this is for the people that are joining us in person. You can win sunset cocktails on the new Soul Rooftop Bar at EOS at Sky City, followed by a 4-course dinner with matching wines valued at $480. That sounds pretty amazing. For our friends at the new Adelaide Oval Hotel, which, can I say, is looking amazing, and I can't wait to stay there. An overnight accommodation for 2 in a studio room, including breakfast for 2 at the bespoke wine bar and kitchen. So those prizes are for the people that are here in the room, and there are many more prizes, actually. Now, for our friends joining us virtually, I'm going to let you on a little bit of a secret that later today the Bureau are going to be announcing that their premier event showcase, Destination South Australia, has been confirmed for 2021. And they will be giving away to our virtual audience, our online audience, a free registration for this event. That includes all expenses paid trip to Adelaide, first-class accommodation, and the opportunity to meet these brilliant people and see what South Australia has to offer. So please don't miss out on that opportunity a bit later for our virtual audience. Now, in terms of where we technically are in a recession. And partnerships have always been important. We do know that, but more so now, they're even more incredibly important to the success of any event. So I'd like to take a moment to thank some of our key supporters and sponsors for today. Now, to this fantastic facility, we're at the Adelaide Convention Centre. A huge thank you for allowing us into this magnificent space and guiding us through your COVID management plan. To the PCO of the day, all occasions, a risk management expert, to experience what we did at check-in at the start was excellent, and it's great to be working with you to put on today's event. Now, to our friends, one of the hardest hit suppliers during these times, Adelaide Expo Hire. Now, we really appreciate your support, and we'd encourage anyone to talk to the team about your exhibition needs today. And to my friend Phil Luke from Luke Corporate Speakers International, thank you so much for your support. And finally, most importantly, we'd like to thank the South Australian Government and the City of Adelaide for their support of the Bureau and the broad industry during these times. Now, before we go on to our first panel, I would like to tell you a little bit about who I am. I do a lot of keynote speaking. I do a lot of emceeing. I'm also a leadership consultant. I'm actually also an event organiser. I run my own conference called New Day. I'm a physiotherapist, as I mentioned to you all. I'm a mum of 3 beautiful boys, and in 2020, I finally got a girl. I have a COVID cavoodle puppy called Minnie, and I'm also a Paralympic triple gold medalist. And that really is the reason that I get behind a microphone, I suppose when I look at my journey of why do I share and get this amazing opportunity to connect with people like yourselves, is because of my Paralympic journey. Ironically, on Sunday, just gone, the 18th of October, it was 20 years since the Sydney 2000 Paralympic Games opening ceremony. And when I watched that, I looked at it and went, wow, whoever thought I had the opportunity to carry the torch into the stadium to a packed house of 110,000 people. And I know it was like pre-COVID days, and to have Tokyo Paralympic Games be postponed to next year, who knows what a Games is going to look like in the future. I really respected and had so much honour for the 20 years history since the Sydney Games. Now, I am a Paralympian, and if you've never seen me before, you'll probably spend the rest of the time watching me move and try and work out what's wrong with me if you don't know or know my story. Now, the reason why I'm a Paralympian is because I have a very mild case of cerebral palsy on the right side of my body. And so what is cerebral palsy? It's actually a neurological gift. It actually says in the definition of disorder, but I'm a bit over people saying that people are disordered. It's a gift that I've been given through the journey that I've had. A neurological gift of either an injury to the brain or malformation while a child's brain is being developed. So the left side of my brain has a tiny little bit of scar tissue that was there before I was even born, which affects the right side of my body. So even seeing me move around today, you probably won't pick it up. Why? Because it mainly affects my right lower limb. I can't actually curl my right toes. I've never been able to do it. I've tried for 43 years, and I can do it on my left side so easily. And some of you might be sitting there right now, even virtually, trying to check out your own toe curling ability. I can't curl my toes, I can't point my toes, I can't do a calf raise. So my right lower limb is affected. The interesting part about my story, though, is I knew I had something wrong. I didn't know it was labelled cerebral palsy until 1995, when I was living in Canberra on a fully paid netball scholarship. So I knew I had something wrong. I did a great job of hiding it because I didn't want to be known as being different. Made it to Canberra in 1995 on a fully paid netball scholarship and thought that this was going to be my best year yet. 1995 reminds me of 2020. I don't know if anyone else in the room or virtually started 2020 thinking that this was going to be their best year yet. For me, I felt that way. I had 6 international trips, a ton of work, emceeing, speaking, and really felt like this was going to be the year. I have never, ever experienced my diary go to completely a clean slate. And I appreciate and sharing this because I know you've all been through the same situation. 1995 was similar for me. I thought it was going to be my best year yet. I got a knee injury that I spent 10 weeks off the court rehabbing from. I got back on the court, and then I started not getting picked for the team. And I never got picked for the team again. And that, I can just say, is not much fun. It sucks. It was my first experience of rejection and not being good enough. And to top it off in 1995, I was labelled with having cerebral palsy. So nothing changed except very quickly the coach who was taking athletes to the Atlanta Paralympic Games found out about me and was incredibly excited, as you can imagine. And so this coach came up to me one day and he was so excited, his hands rubbing together, and I felt like I'd won the lottery or something. And he went on to explain that me in a year's time, if I got classified and I could qualify, I would find myself at the Atlanta Paralympic Games. Now, the short story of this all is I wasn't excited and pumped up. In fact, I was incredibly frightened because it meant that I had to let people know there was something wrong with me. The best thing I did in 1995 was go and speak to a sports psychologist. And from 1995 onwards, I have invested in psychology or the power of my mind to really work out how I could get through it. And in 2020, they were the best skills that I could use to navigate. I learned a process called metacognition, which is a process meaning thinking about your thinking. Is it healthy? Is it balanced? Is it true? Is it the right decisions you want to make? I learned to have a flexible mindset. I learned about adaptability. I learned about wellness. I learned about resilience. I learned about excellence. All the things that I needed to help me navigate 2020. In fact, the thing that I really learned was actually how to bring a mindset of optimalism. And optimalism is different from being an optimist or a pessimist. It's about striving for excellence, but accepting the realities of the world. Whoever thought that they would be all the skills that I needed to navigate 2020? And two examples as I close this segment, highlights for me in terms of business. How did I become adaptable and navigate? One of the things I'm incredibly proud of in 2020 is that I had an online conference because I had to. We had 300 people on a program, 6 speakers over 6 weeks, and it was incredibly successful. However, we're going back to a physical event as soon as possible. And the other highlight for me was that I took 100 people to the top of Mount Everest virtually. Every year I normally spend 3 times a year in Nepal. I have a business there, and I never thought that I would be able to take 100 people to the top of Everest virtually and keep my team employed. So 2020, who would have thought this is where we are? It is an exciting time because we are navigating how we move forward. Let's introduce our panel. Let's bring them up to the stage and let's ask the questions that you would all like to know, to be honest, how we're going to move forward through this time. So get out your event app. Make sure if you've got any questions that you'd love to ask, pop them on there. I see them on the stage and I can ask them directly of the panellist. Our first panellist this morning is Simon Burgess, the General Manager of the Adelaide Convention Centre. Can we give Simon a round of applause because we actually can? Now, Simon is also being joined on stage by Damien Kitto, the Chief Executive of the Adelaide Convention Bureau. A round of applause for Damien. And gentlemen, welcome both to the stage. And today we're going to do this with a hybrid of a combination, having some virtual guests. Now, today we're joined by Penny Lyon, who is the Executive General Manager of Events at Tourism Australia. Round of applause for Penny. Penny, give us a wave. And we also have Paula Roundtree, the Head of Events and Experience at the Royal Australian College of General Practitioners. So please give Paula a round of applause as well. So wonderful to see you both. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us virtually today. It's wonderful to have you here. Welcome, gentlemen, as well. Great to have this combination of virtual and in the moment experience. So, Penny, I might start with you. What trends are you seeing from the international space, and how does this impact Australia and Adelaide?
Gosh, that's a big question to kick off. Hi, everyone. Hi, Katrina, gentlemen. Look, you know, trends, believe it or not, even on that global sort of landscape are very similar. Everyone's in such different stages of lockdown. So like Australia, the events industry has really been impacted very badly. And so, of course, many of the event agencies and event suppliers and providers are doing all they can to survive. But, you know, we've used the word pivot over and over, but a lot of the really smart businesses did do just that. You know, they shifted their business pretty quickly to cater for what their customer needs were. And so if it was, you know, in the association space, which Paula can probably speak far more strongly to, but, you know, events can still happen, learning and professional development can still happen. They just happen in an environment such as this. So the virtual world kicked off very quickly. Even at Tourism Australia, we do about 40 events each year ourselves. And I have a team outside my office right now who are running an event in the United States, all being done online with 300 people from around the US and across Australia. So, you know, it is possible. It's not ideal, as you said, Katrina. It's much better, you know, in the physical sense. But really that's the pattern at the moment. And I think the one promising thing is that lead generation is still happening across the event sector for inbound events to Australia, both in the association and incentive space. So that's promising, and we just need to all stick together and do what we can to keep those leads live and convert them when we can, when it's possible, borders are open, etc.
Thank you. Simon, I'll go to you. Adelaide Convention Centre, thank you so much for having us in this beautiful space today. I know you've had around 44, 45 events already, and you've got some great bookings, maybe 80 or 90, coming up. How has it been for you, and you know, what is it meaning for your clients? And yeah, tell us about the Convention Centre.
Sure. Well, look, I think the first thing is we've been really fortunate here in South Australia. The COVID, I think, has been relatively managed incredibly well. And so we're actually dealing with a set of restrictions that are 2 square metres per person. So that actually allows us, the restrictions aren't too severe, and it allows us to keep the integrity of the event. So that's been a massive plus. We reopened in August, and as you said, we've already had some events, and probably by the end of this year, we'll have held 200 events upwards of that. So again, another positive, and it's been really energizing for the team to get back to that live face-to-face events, which is what we do here, obviously. I guess another positive as well, if I'm looking at it, most of the business that was supposed to take place over this COVID period hasn't cancelled, it's postponed, it's been carried over, which as a result means that we're looking at a forward calendar which is looking healthy at the moment. Materialization will be the key to that moving forward. But in terms of extra measures, the people here will have seen it this morning. Obviously, it's around signage, distancing, contact tracing, sanitizing, and you'll have seen the COVID marshals that we have here as well, which is a recent requirement. So I don't think there's anything too onerous there, but obviously there's some processes that need to be put in place to make sure that we're keeping safe, and that's obviously what we're taking seriously. I think the other thing I'd like to say, and Paula might have some comments on this, but as organisers, we're getting people phoning us up. They're not scared to run an event. They want to run a live event, but they need that reassurance. They need to know that we've taken measures in hand, and that's obviously what we've done here at the centre. If I could say that we've learned some lessons, yes, absolutely. What I would suggest is to anyone organising events, you've really got to connect up your parties. You know, so from the speakers to the exhibition stand builders, to the client, to the delegate, to the venue, everybody has to be on the same page. And it's all about early communication, very early in the piece, making sure that everyone understands that there are a few changes, a few processes to go through. And I think once you've done that, people have the expectation, they know what's going to happen, and generally things are passed off very smoothly. So communication, making sure we've got those measures in place, that people are taking them seriously. But yeah, nothing too onerous, I wouldn't have thought.
Thank you. Thank you, Simon. Paula, I might bring you into the conversation, Head of Events and Experience at the Royal Association College of General Practitioners. So tell us about what it's been like for you, what changes you've seen, and how's it looking for the future?
Thanks, Katrina, and hi, everybody. Sorry I can't be there, but I will just preface this by saying I did actually put on proper pants today. So I went out in sympathy for you all and actually put on proper pants so that I felt like I was there in person. I don't think the College of GPs is really experiencing much that's too different from most associations around Australia. You know, I think if we were looking at what we've changed and where our areas of concern are, I mean, you know, associations, obviously professional development is a huge part of what we do, along with education and, you know, collegiality, social connection for our members. And Penny, I think you summed up perfectly, where we hate saying the word pivot, but we all pivoted, you know, to digital. We had to keep our members connected and to be able to provide them with everything that they need. And I think that in itself is actually a challenge that associations are facing, because we transitioned so quickly. And I don't think we're different to the rest of the world in that we started running these digital events, and a lot of us did it at no cost. And that's going to be a huge consideration for us moving forward as we transition back to a combination of physical and digital, which is how do we value what we're doing in a digital space? And how do we compare that digital cost to a physical cost? You know, I mentioned earlier, hybrid's not going away. Digital isn't going to go away. Our members, particularly those who are located in rural and remote locations, who before, you know, the prohibitedness of travel may have stopped them from coming to our events, see this as a way of going, now I can participate, now I can belong even more. But as the event organisers, you know, we have to overlay that addition of costs, where we're not just running a physical event with physical expenses, we're now running a digital conference at the same time that must have its own bespoke conference. We can't fall into this trap of just live streaming a physical event. You know, it's not going to lead to more registrations in physical. It's not going to lead to an engaging experience. So we now have that additional cost as well. And all of those things just sort of weigh on us, along with, you know, the uncertainty of COVID restrictions at any time. And I recently moved from Melbourne back to Brisbane to be with my family, simply because of the restrictions in Melbourne were becoming too much. But at any point, any state could head back in that area. So that uncertainty of restrictions and state-by-state border, restrictions and what that means for meeting numbers, all of that adds to an industry by default, associations are risk adverse, and all of that just adds to the risk management. And to Simon's point, add to that we have to sort of look at COVID safe. So we're managing this multi-tier of risk and uncertainty that does create a little bit of an overwhelming experience. But that coupled with, our member sentiment, which is, are our members physically, mentally, financially, and emotionally ready to get back into a meeting room? So all of that creates a little bit of a hubble bubble for us of planning forward and what that makeup of digital, hybrid, and physical looks like.
Yeah, some really good points there. I'm going to bring you into the conversation, Damien. Anything you'd like to add on to what has already been said, and then I can ask you some questions about the future of looking at events in. Would you like to talk about, make comment?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Katrina, and good morning, everyone. It's great to be here, and thanks to Simon and the team. Simon mentioned about being flexible and working together. I really wanted to reinforce that. It's critically important. There's nothing certain in this uncertain world at the moment. So being flexible, being adaptive, working together, that's how we can present business events moving forward. So it's really important. And just to cap off Paula's comment, it's really difficult to understand the economic impact of COVID. So again, flexibility is everything. But again, the purpose of this great event is to try and deliver as much confidence as possible for not only the local market, but the national, ultimately the international market as well. Because if people feel safe, they're healthy, they're confident, they will travel. So of course, Paul is absolutely right. There will be online meetings, there'll be hybrid meetings, but people will attend in person as well. We obviously want to move quickly to that, but the reality is that we won't get there overnight. It's a step-by-step gradual process through 2021 and probably through to 22 when hopefully we again can have 2,000 people in this great plenary hall.
Yeah, thank you, Damien. Please let us know if you've got any questions. Jump on the event app. Normally we'd probably have a roving mic, but we're not going to do that in a COVID-safe event. So we can see your questions come up virtually. Join us. If there's something you'd like to ask any of the panellists, please join in. Penny, I'll come back to you in terms of, looking at Tourism Australia and having to move into the domestic market space during this time. What is the goal for Tourism Australia of helping in this domestic market?
Look, the ultimate goal is to help the Australian industry. I won't speak to the consumer or the tourism side of things, the leisure side of things, unless anybody wants to have me cover that off. But from the business events perspective, we really feel that there's the confidence issue about mostly probably corporate decision makers, but associations as well, about having or holding their events again when the time is right. And we have to keep saying when the time is right because, there's a different rule book and protocol in every state and territory in our country at the moment. So for us to actually do some marketing to be able to, I suppose, inform the decision makers of Australia when the time is right, that hosting an event is not just good for their people and for culture within an organisation. It's good for their business in regards to return on investment. But we're also saying do it for your country as well, because it will actually take that sort of momentum and that I suppose attitude to have people out and about building confidence and helping our economy across the country. So that's the key thing. But for me and for the team here, it's all about the industry. How can we help them?
Penny, do you think it will be a permanent move for Tourism Australia?
It's a good question. It's one we're discussing at board exec level at the moment. I don't think it will be. We have wonderful partnerships across each state and territory, not just with the tourism organisations, but the convention bureaus, the convention centres who do work in the domestic space. So the last thing we want to do is have duplication and waste, money. So, our job at the moment will be that big broad brush positioning of how do we you know, like I said, remind people how important the event world is for lots of different reasons, and also inspire people with content in regards to what you can do across our wonderful country in the BE world. But then each state and territory does such wonderful work in their own state or territory, and we'll leave that to them. So we'll probably look, we're talking at the moment, it will be at least until you know, end of this fiscal year, and then we'll look at how we can help or if there's a need for it going further. We do have a partnership program called the Boost program, which Emily Elkington runs for us here at Tourism Australia within the BE team. And again, those sorts of partnership opportunities are absolutely brilliant for industry to leverage and help from a financial grant perspective. I'd like to see that continue, but I have to fight my corner, I suppose, for that one. I'll do my best.
Yes, please keep doing that.
Could
Yes,
I
please,
just make a comment there? And Penny and her team have been awesome along with Tourism Australia. But again, we're all in this together. Economically, it is a challenge, but Penny's mentioned the Boost program. There's the federal government's program, $50 million, which has been launched. We're still working through the criteria. So there's buckets of money out there, everyone, that you can tap into to really help the sustainability of business events for at least the next 12, if not 18 months. So don't think you're in it alone. There's federal money, there's state money. Let's try and get business events up and running and use the funding programs available.
Thanks,
On
Damien.
that,
Yes.
sorry, Katrina and
Go.
Damien. I think, Damien, you've raised a really good point, which is, you know, one of the biggest concerns we have is risk. And I think, you know, Penny and the team at Becca have done an amazing job advocating for our industry for that 50 million fund. And I think one of the greatest things that I've seen come out of that is that if as an organisation, so as an association or as a corporate, you've accessed that money as an organiser rather than say a venue or supplier, is that, you know, of the funding that we get, we can use 50% of that to underwrite our risk. That's a really big leverage point for us, especially associations who have such risk-adverse boards, to be able to say that we've secured this funding and we've been able to use a portion of it to underwrite the risk should, you know, a third, a fourth, or should restrictions come back. That really does make it a lot easier for us to be able to sell getting back into physical events. It also challenges us to look differently at how we organise events, to really look at, you know, what are we putting on and how is it benefiting the public of Australia so that we can make sure that we're giving back returns on investment on that money that the federal government's giving us. But, you know, that would be, I guess, you know, talking to sort of Simon and the Adelaide team and some of the others, is that ability to use it to underwrite risk makes our ability to meet in person a lot easier to sell.
Yeah, that is some really good points there in terms of, I know that was one of the questions I did want to ask you, Paula, was about, now you're in Brisbane, that you normally do run events in Adelaide, and seeing Adelaide in the recovery of that, obviously if that risk is there for you, is lessened for you, it's easier to run events. Do you still feel like you will be able to, or still see Adelaide as a strong point in the recovery for your events, Paula?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's a conversation that I think, you know, Simon, we've had regularly, which is Adelaide, from an association perspective, is one of our greatest supporters. Simon and his team really have taken a lot of time over the years to actually understand our world. It is a different world. At times, it's a slightly crazy world. And everybody in the room who works for associations is probably sitting there nodding their heads. But Simon and his team have actively understood our world. So it actually makes working with Adelaide a little bit easier for us. They get our risk, they understand our boards, they understand our operating environment. And Adelaide's, I guess, response to COVID and ability to be COVID safe does make it highly appealing for us. You know, I think that we talk about subvention, you know, and that ability for, I guess, Adelaide to be able to transition any subvention they might have been targeting for international and perhaps pushing that back into the domestic market would help. But I think that Adelaide's probably more strongly positioned than I would say some of the other leading convention centres to welcome us back and for us to have more confidence in coming to Adelaide.
Yeah, thank you. We're getting some great questions from Audience, thank you so much. And this follows on really nicely, and I might go to Simon first. A question from Katie around what are the important considerations when planning a COVID-safe event? So I know you've shared a couple, but maybe you could share a few. And then I might come to you, Damien, because you might be able to explain what you did in terms of coming together to really prepare for this event. Simon?
So it's in the planning, it's doing things early and, as I mentioned before, communicating and getting partners on board. What we've found with some events as well is, and I think, Paula, you mentioned it as well, you need to look at the interactivity within the event as well, I think, and you need to look at how spacing is happening, and it depends on your numbers, and we're lucky here we have space, and we can sort of allow for more activity. But as an organizer, I think maybe you're looking at where people are and what are they doing, and maybe you separate things up and maybe run apps, and maybe in some of the banquets that we've done as well, people are doing different things at different times, and I think that's maybe something to consider. But that interaction, and as we all know, look, we've had hybrid facilities here. We didn't call it that at the time. I think we just called it webcasting, but we've had that for years. And so it's no surprise for us, and we're fully anticipating that organisers will want to get that extra reach, get that extra contact and engagement with a wider audience that then will probably want to come to the event and experience it live in the future. So those are, I guess, a couple of pointers.
Yeah. Simon, there is a question here that who owns the risk of the event?
A lot of people would like it to be the venue, but really it comes down to the organizer. And we were talking about the fund before, and I think that's really key that this fund is used to go to the event organizer, because at the end of it, they're the person pulling all the component parts together, running the budget, along with probably a PCO or in-house team to deliver the event. Obviously, the venue would be a significant cost in the overall budget, and we do what we can to come to the party, especially at the moment in this time. We want to see events getting up. We want to see things happen. It's for the good of the industry, and it's for the good of all venues, not just the convention centre. So I think, as we've said, Adelaide is well poised, and a flexible approach from a venue can certainly help. And Paula, thank you very much. I was nearly going to make a booking before.
Damien, tell us about Team Adelaide, like people coming together to think about this. So share some knowledge that would help with the audience. Thanks,
Katrina. It's been a strategy and a key focus of the Adelaide Convention Bureau. And let's face it, back in March this year, I think you used the words wiping the slate clean. Our industry sadly closed down overnight. It's a $2 billion industry here in Adelaide and South Australia, which is not insignificant by any means at all. Venues, hotels, the airport, the supply chain is massive. Even to those, cleaning linen, growing the lettuce to put on the table, the supply chain impacted by literally no business events taking place is significant, and it's been devastating. And certainly on behalf of the Bureau, really compassionate and towards the membership and what's happened. But you've got to think positive, and we're very cautiously positive about the future. It is a good story, but we are cautious. But we had to, as we've already mentioned, try and instill confidence into the marketplace. And to the credit of the South Australian Government and the community of South Australia, we've done amazingly well from a COVID safety point of view. I think people anecdotally say our last community transmission goes back to the 20th of March. We know our cases are very, very low. So we're in a fantastic position to be able to move forward and deliver confidence. So what we delivered was, back in June, a SAFE campaign. It's about an end-to-end solution. So working with the airport, venues, hotels, organisers, the supply chain. We've got about 60 members that have signed up to the campaign, and it's about delivering an end-to-end solution. So when a delegate arrives to the airport, they arrive at their hotel, they arrive at their venue, they conduct their event, they know they've got Team Adelaide working for them in a very safe and healthy way. Simon's just kindly outlined some of the key principles. You showed earlier the traffic light system that we've developed and we're all working to here today. And it's about understanding and having confidence that this is what it is, as easy as it is, being cautious, careful of course, to present a COVID-safe event. It's no more than that. Look at the way the audience is set up this morning. Those that haven't been into the exhibition, it's a fantastic setup there out the back there. So it's actually really easy. So it's about confidence. So that's what the SAFE campaign is all about, and really proud of what our team have done here at the Adelaide Convention Bureau and working with our members. Not only have we postponed 85% of the business from 2020 into 21 and 22, but we've now got events that, unfortunately for our friends over in Melbourne, they of course haven't been doing well, slowly getting there now, but events are now moving to Adelaide because of our reputation, working together as Team Adelaide, because of our safe environment. So I'm really cautiously optimistic and confident about the future.
Excellent. And please, while you're here, if you are here physically with us, I know the virtual audience are going to go into a webinar that talks a lot more about this detail. That is coming up. But when you do go out into the exhibition hall, chat to the suppliers and the venues and find out a lot of the answers to these questions. Penny, I'm going to come back to you in terms of the local tourism campaigns have helped bringing business back to regional tourism, but can we do more to raise and support perhaps a business events campaign? There's a question from the audience.
Yes, there is one coming, but that term I was saying, when the time is right, I mean, it would be tone deaf of us to go out with a national campaign with what's happening, you know, can't get into WA, Melbourne, et cetera, So we will be doing a brand campaign for business events on what I touched on before. And then also a lot of content, because, you know, content, we can't do big brand advertising. Content and the messaging and the information, and we say information, inspiration, educate, you know, excite, whatever terms you want to use. There's a lot that is needed, especially for those events that normally go overseas. So that's what we'll be doing. So watch this space.
Great. Penny, I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, and if anyone else does, I'm not sure either, because I know I did register for this one as well, but a question has been, when will the criteria of the federal government's $50 million funding grants be released? Does anyone know?
Yeah, look, that's being worked on by BECA, the Business Events Council of Australia, in conjunction with Austrade and other departments who are managing the grant program, and that's just being worked through. So I believe Vanessa's just been on leave. I'll defend her, and so that's it's imminent. They really want that money to be spent in the next year.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're having some great interaction here. Some logistical questions I might throw to Simon. Current restrictions on running gala dinners at a conference?
So the restrictions right now aren't too onerous. As I mentioned before, it's 2 square metres per person. We're still running tables of 10, and we're doing plated food to the tables. So as long as obviously we're looking at the toilets and the entry and distancing within the actual facility, it's very similar to what you had before.
Yep. And also, there was one around floor plans. Venues like the Convention Centre have got a floor plan currently that people can look at to see that is a COVID-safe floor plan, so they can work out how to bring attendees. That's all accessible. Even before COVID, we had the floor plans that people can review, and we do the same now. We'll probably put a little bit more detail into that. It needs just that little extra run over of focus. But yes, that's no problem at all. Good. Okay, I'm going to come back to Damien, and then I'm going to come back to you, Paula. So, Damien, there's a question around how do we overcome, I like this one, attendees' nerves and encourage attendance at events in South Australia, particularly with businesses with head offices on the East Coast that have a blanket rule on no face-to-face events?
It is a great question. Again, this is the purpose of today's event, this morning's event in particular. Those that are exhibiting, there's something like 60, if not 70 local clients wandering through the exhibition. So the industry, again, it hasn't opened up overnight. It's a gradual process. And the more we can demonstrate through events like this and through literature, that's what's going to deliver the confidence. But really promising that 70 clients have turned up today to talk business. From a national perspective, again, through the Bureau, through the support of the State Government, City Council, we need to try and get more and more of the message out there that Adelaide, South Australia is safe. And again, it comes back to our campaign that we launched back in June and we will keep hammering that home, that Adelaide and South Australia is safe, but it's open for business events. So people shouldn't feel unconfident at all. They should be confident, because you look at the venue that Simon and the team have set up here this morning in terms of the distancing, the sanitising, the way they've worked together with All Occasions Management, Adelaide Expo Hire, it's all here. And again, we shouldn't overthink what we've got to do, because it's about contact tracing, it's about distancing, and it's about sanitisation. They are, I think it goes back to Dr. Nick, we probably all saw those ads over May, June and July. It's about doing the three. And if we can get that into our day-to-day sort of, living and practice and through our work here and business events, it's actually not difficult to present a business event. What I'm really concerned about, and it's what Paula touched on earlier, it's about the economic impact of COVID. Because I think here in Adelaide and South Australia, again, we need to be sensible, we need to be cautious, but we're really safe. And that's our message that we'll continue to get out, not only locally, but across the country. Come to Adelaide and South Australia. We'd be delighted to help you working through Team Adelaide. We're here to help and support.
Thanks, Damien. Paula, I'm going to ask you, if you were in your position now, you're going to be putting on events, so like most people here, what sort of questions are you asking around the risk of all of this, because we brought that up. And I want to unpack that a little bit as well, because there's a few questions I'd like to navigate around risks still. So what sort of questions are you asking, whether it's Simon or in other areas, to put events back on?
Yeah, look, I think, Katrina, there's a couple of different layers of risk. There's obviously the COVID risk, which is around health and safety. So, it really is around sanitisation. It really is around social distancing. But it's also overlaying that with people come to an event because they want to have an experience. As event organisers, I think one of our challenges is we knew physical events intimately. We knew how to create experiences intuitively. We knew how to get people into the exhibition hall. We didn't have to think it. We didn't have to plan it. And as event planners, we have to change that focus. We have to go back to our basics, which is we need to look at creating delegate journeys again. We have to understand that and then have that conversation with Simon and the team at Adelaide to go, okay, here's the experience that I want to create. How do I do that in a COVID-safe world? How do I do that, with potential changes and restrictions? If this happened, what would our backup be? And that's a lot more work for event planners than probably a lot of us have had to do for a little while, because we've become very set in our ways and we've become very adaptive to how things used to work. So we've got to go back and recreate that and then have a conversation. I think that the second layer of risk is around the appetite and the financial ability for people to come to a physical event. And we have to look at what that risk is. And that's where, depending on whether you're a corporate or an association, and, the question earlier about blanket travel bans is such a good one, because, again, people are saying no travel because of COVID, in which case you can overcome that boundary through showing, Qantas and Virgin or Jetstar, they've all got COVID-safe travel. So you can overcome that fear. You can show how Adelaide Airport's doing it well, the convention centre, but there's also then the financial COVID implications that say we've got a blanket travel ban simply because travel is now seen as a nice to have, not a must to have. So you then have to look into overcoming that risk. So I think there's a couple of areas with risk, but to the original point is create the experience that you want your delegates to have, start there, and then bring your convention centre and your partners in to help you understand what that looks like in a COVID-safe environment.
Thank you. Thanks, Paula. Simon, can I ask two questions on that? Is with COVID risk, so if you're someone wanting to use a venue like yours, do you take full management of COVID as a part of your risk management plan?
So it's up to the venue to actually submit a COVID management plan, which we've done, and we cover what actually happens within the venue. So that's the responsibility of the venue. And then, as I was mentioning before, we then go to our partners, our clients, and basically ask for their cooperation and buy-in to see how we can work the event, still have those deliverables in terms of experience, but then still stay safe. So it's that partnership.
Yeah. And also, if, and this is a worst case scenario question, that if we have the confidence to pop events on and we're all going, and then, like we've seen this year where things had to change, how do we navigate? So if we did have an event on and we weren't able to run it at all, however, we still don't want to actually cancel, it would be a partnership relationship with someone like you to say, is that in the pre-planning? If the event gets cancelled, because we do need to have these conversations, the plan B looks like this, and the ticket price remains the same, but the plan B is the virtual experience. Are they the conversations you're having to really increase confidence in this space?
Sure. So again, it's a partnership. When we're planning these events, the certainty is there will be changes. You can only control the controllables that you know at the time, and you plan the event. If we then have another outbreak and it's impossible for the event to take place, then of course the main option is either to postpone it to another time or to run it virtually. Either way, we'll be there to pick up the pieces, to work through, so we have a flexible approach to make that happen and to make it financially viable.
Thank you.
And I think, Katrina, to that point, as event planners, event organisers, business event professionals, that falls on us as well. It's not the venue's sole responsibility. Every one of us, whether you're working for a PCO, whether you're in-house with a corporate or association, by now, you should have developed your COVID safe plan. What does it look like for you as an organisation, and what are your risk management strategies? And that should form part of a broader digital event strategy and a hybrid event strategy and a physical event strategy that now needs to become just a stock standard part of what we do as business event professionals. And that's information that we should be sharing with, Simon and his team to say, here's our COVID safe plan. Here's the requirements, because we also need to, run our own tracking and tracing at these events. We need to say to, suppliers like Adelaide Expo Hire, well, here's our expectations of how it would work. So I think, there's a lot of that responsibility that sits on us as well. It's not all up to the venue.
Yeah, well said. Thank you.
Katrina, if I could just add something really quickly. We shouldn't forget, and it comes back to the confidence point, our DNA is all about risk management as event managers, as event presenters. So to Paula's point, we need to think differently, but we've got the toolkit. And that's where the traffic light system is incredibly important in terms of green, low risk, amber, medium, red, high risk. And to your question to Simon, if we go beyond red and we've got to close down, Team Adelaide is here to help partner and support the client, but also the delegates as well, to ensure that they get a great experience. And that's a really unique proposition here for Adelaide and South Australia, is that we're a small city, we're a boutique city, we're clean and green, but we're highly connected. We all get along, we love to work together. So again, it's about a tailor-made solution. So worst case scenario to best case scenario, we're here to help. And that should really be the theme coming out of today, is about confidence, working together, making things happen, if it's good, bad or indifferent.
Yeah, thank you, Damien. We're going to hear from Damien a bit later on as well, and if we have missed some questions, we will try and answer those. Damien and I are going to join this group in the physical, but we're also going to join the virtual group as well. As we wrap up, Penny, any last words you'd like to leave us with today?
I want to congratulate the Adelaide team for doing what they're doing. I think it's so important. It all speaks to that confidence word we keep saying. So I think the industry, if they can just keep hanging on in there and coming up with ideas and being resilient, that's all I can really share, and just say that we're thinking of everyone and doing our best. So good luck with the rest of today.
Thanks, Penny. Paula, any final words?
I think for me, it's we're tending to focus on a lot of the negative, and I appreciate that's where we're at. But what I would say, particularly to every business event professional who's in the room today and who's online digitally, is for us, this is such an exciting time. In the past, we've kind of maybe fallen into the trap of doing what we do automatically. And this is a chance for us to drop all barriers and actually start from scratch again on so much. And rethink how we do what we do to create even more engaging experiences. And engage with our suppliers to maybe reset some of the ways that we work together with them. So I think it's a really exciting time for us. And I think, the end is coming. We're seeing light at the end of that tunnel. And, I would say to all my, event professionals is hold on there. I know how much energy we get from meeting face to face. And I know we're all starved for that energy and that connection, and it's coming back. Just have faith and be patient, and we will all be together again soon.
Yeah, really great words to finish on. Thank you so much, Paula. Simon, any final words from you?
We've enhanced our digital capabilities here at the centre. We know that this is part of the parcel moving forward, but I would say that when you've attended a live event and you come back and you see the people that you haven't seen for a long period of time, the energy that is in the room is palpable and it's not going anywhere. Live events are here to stay.
Oh, absolutely. The chemicals that we share that we don't even know we're sharing, the good stuff, just by being in a room together, it can't be replaced. And as human beings, we really do need human connection for our health. So thank you to Penny and Paula. It's wonderful to showcase how you can do this hybridly, and also to Damien and to Simon. Can we give a round of applause to our panel here today? A very informative discussion. Thanks for getting on the app and virtually and in the room for sharing the questions. Some really great questions coming through. So, to our virtual guests that have joined us, I'm now going to hand you over to Nick Mercer, who's the General Manager of Sales and Marketing at the Adelaide Convention Bureau, and he's going to facilitate the second half of your webinar. So, goodbye to you all.
Well, thanks, Katrina. It's great to have everybody here with us this morning. We really appreciate your time. I know this is another webinar to get through, but this is a more broader webinar about what's going on in Adelaide. And before we get into some of the insights in Adelaide, just a few housekeeping things. We've got a few polls that are coming up in the next hour, and we really appreciate your engagement of those. We've also got the ability to have some questions, and if you've got any questions of either the panellists that you just saw or any of our guests here in the hot seat today, certainly shoot them through and we'll get to them at the end collectively. So I appreciate your time. Now, as I said, our next guest in the hot seat is Anne-Marie Quinn. Anne-Marie is with the PCO from South Australia, the All Occasions group. Anne-Marie's group was actually the one that has put on today's event. So Anne-Marie, thank you very much for joining us here today. What was it like in putting on today's event?
Thanks, Nick. Yes, look, I think it's a fantastic initiative to be putting, the Connect SA event on. Obviously, it's one of the first for some time now, given our situation with COVID. But I think it's great to be actually able to showcase what Adelaide can do, what South Australia can do, and just sort of instill that bit of confidence in people that it is safe to conference. It can be done. Adelaide, of all places, really is the place to come right now, given that we are open for business and welcoming for people from all over Australia, excluding obviously Victoria at the moment. So I think it's fantastic from that perspective, and to basically showcase the Team Adelaide collaborative approach to working together. It's been a while since we've all come together and obviously planned meetings, and so to be able to morph into this new model of a hybrid meeting where we're seeing live events as well as that on-air platform model as well coming together, I think is great to capture everybody's participation, whether that be in person or whether that be via a platform such as that we're using today. So I think it's fantastic that we've been able to showcase that to give people a sense of it is doable, it is possible in Adelaide, it can be done in a safe way, taking into account the protocol at the time, which is obviously changing rapidly and has done so from the outset. And it just shows that degree of flexibility and that degree of being able to think responsively and quickly to the changing situation.
The restrictions changed, and they certainly changed in the lead up to this event a couple of times for the better, which is great. So how does that affect your planning? What steps did your team need to go through in order to put today's event on, have the exhibition outside, the plenary hall, the keynote speaker? What were some of the things that that came to fruition to put today's event on?
Well, we have to really collaborate closely in the lead up and in the planning phase with all of the stakeholders in bringing this together, being the venue, accommodation providers, the exhibition build company, and from an AV perspective of delivering the virtual component of the conference as well. So, being really aware, as an event manager, we need to have an overview of all of the restrictions and what that looks like and what that means. But then it's also that grassroots level of working with the venue and with the other stakeholders for what specifically they need to be doing from their side of it to ensure that we're compliant and that we're putting on a safe event and that people actually feel safe and confident to attend, because South Australia doesn't have any active cases, and we have zero community transmission, but it's more that instilling confidence, and it's more creating a sense of comfort, that people actually feel comfortable to jump on a plane if they're coming from interstate and actually come to South Australia to attend a meeting. Now, the colleagues that I've spoken to recently from interstate have actually said if there's one place we're going to take an event at the moment, it's going to be Adelaide and it's going to be South Australia, just because of our proximity and our fantastic facilities that we've always had. But obviously now the way we've managed, the way SA Health and the state as a whole have managed, COVID and our response and basically the zero transmissions within the community. So yeah, it's confidence building, but it's involving working collaboratively, and I say that again, that the Team Adelaide approach really now more than ever is critical to make sure that we're covering all those different areas and everyone's compliant across the facets of the meeting.
Yeah, you mentioned that Team Adelaide, and that really is important for clients and our friends interstate to know what that is. Can you explain that and the role that a PCO plays within that at the moment?
Sure. It's something that I'm really proud of, and I really notice because we conference obviously a lot in South Australia, but we're providing those services, interstate at a lot of the convention centres and hotel venues. And really, what we do here in South Australia is unique. It is special, and it's something that isn't necessarily replicatable, across Australia or internationally. And it's that degree of collaboration and that willingness to actually work together as a team for the, with the end user in mind here, with our clients in mind, and actually, doing a lot of that legwork and a lot of that discussion and negotiation at that level, such that what we deliver for the client has been well thought out. It's agreeable. It's positive, it presents well, it's a great experience, and people are happy, and it enables us to showcase the fabulous city that we live in and showcase it in the best light, and it's a pleasant experience, because as an end user, the last thing you want is actually, to have to fight the fight on too many levels of trying to get what you want and trying to, match the peculiarities of your particular event and what your delegates are used to. So here in Adelaide, we do a lot of that hard work for our clients and make sure that the end result is fantastic and a fabulous experience for people, and that's what it's all about. And
I think that the end result that we've ended up with here today certainly is that. It seems like a lot of people are having fun despite all the restrictions that are going on. What's your goal for this event moving forward? You mentioned confidence before, and that being important. For our friends that are joining us virtually, do you hope that there is an ability to be able to see this and go, look, I can see it working in South Australia, and therefore I'm going to give it a crack next?
Yeah, I'm really hoping that people who attend either the live event or are listening to us talking now virtually, I'm really hoping that they can gain a sense of confidence and a sense of trust in the fact that, yep, South Australia's got this one covered. And like what I said earlier, my colleagues are all saying if there's one place we're going to come right now that we feel safe to come and that's doable, it's South Australia. So, just showing to people that all of those elements are coming together. There's flights coming in here. There's daily flights from all hubs coming into Adelaide, which is important. That whole process from when you first arrive at the airport through to accommodation, venue, the experience that basically everyone's worked collaboratively. Everyone's got this sorted from a safety and hygiene perspective, and that I feel confident in bringing my event to Adelaide, and it is doable. I can see it, I can experience it, and I think Connect SA really is giving people that opportunity to see it and experience it firsthand, just on a small scale for a half-day event, but really to see it in play, and that it is doable, and it's cost effective, it's achievable, and it's fun. And we've all been missing meeting face to face, and I think bring it on. I think it's fantastic.
Well, thanks Anne-Marie for joining us here this morning. We really appreciate your time in the hot seat. Next up is Casey Smith from the Adelaide Convention Bureau. Casey's joining us to talk more about the broader element of South Australia. Now, Casey, Anne-Marie talked about the Team Adelaide concept. What does that mean for a specific event organiser?
Team Adelaide's a concept that we've developed over the years. So it's an end-to-end solution that Team Adelaide are promising you a safe and secure event here, starting at the airports and flowing through to the hotels, flowing through to the venues, social function venues and all the suppliers around. So we're bringing you a safe business destination.
Sounds like a great weight has been lifted off a lot of people's shoulders as they're listening to you speak. That's got to be a huge relief for people, that they don't have to be burdened with having to go through the same spiel every single time. They need to talk about what this conference or business event means at a bus company, at an airport, at a hotel. How did that come about? Did everybody get in a room and talk about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we pulled all the key stakeholders together in the one room and talked about what would a safe event look like. And from that, we developed the concept through right from government all the down to the little suppliers, even in the Adelaide Hills. So we wanted to show that everyone's inclusive, whether you can hold 2 people, whether you can hold up to 4,000. We wanted to make everyone feel involved and develop something that's really meaningful for South Australia and for our clients.
Yeah, great. And you mentioned the Adelaide Hills and you mentioned green spaces beforehand. We're quite blessed here in South Australia that we've got these magnificent regions that are all so close to us.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got 12 regions within South Australia, and we're proud of all of our South Australian regions. We're here to work with any region you want to visit. So yeah, please call upon the Adelaide Convention Bureau, and we're here to help wherever you'd like to go within South Australia.
So you've really shown there's a lot of reasons to be confident in holding a business event here in Adelaide. Why is it important that people do turn up and do host those meetings here?
We need business events to get kick-started. We need them to restart, and we need them to restart now. The purpose of holding a conference is to share ideas, share innovation, collaborate and work towards the next goal of either the association or corporate company. We need business events to take place, and virtual events are not quite the same. You don't get the face-to-face interaction, you don't get the networking, you don't get people sharing those ideas. So face-to-face is more important now than ever to kickstart the economy, to kickstart your business. We want you to feel reassured to start now.
Well, thank you, Casey. Really appreciate your insights today and appreciate the conversation around the broader element of what's happening here in South Australia and that important element of being a driver for the economy. We're joined now by Jason Byrd from the National Wine Centre. Jason, thank you very much for being with us here today. I really wanted to talk about why networking is so important in business events and what that means for the economic recovery.
I think business networking, whether it's associated with another event, pre-drink environment, or whether it's a standalone event, it's a real engine room for ideas, it's an engine room for business connection, and it's an engine room for the cross-pollination of ideas. If I was to look at 2020 and say what was the event that was most difficult to transition into a digital environment, that would be networking. There's just a different conversation that's had when you're face-to-face. That personal interaction drives a deeper engagement and therefore better business opportunities.
So what practical considerations do you have to put in place when you're dealing with an event that has a lot of those networking opportunities?
I think communication is key. One of the things about a business event is that you know your attendees are coming beforehand, and to talk to them beforehand is something that we naturally do. So to then take on some COVID messaging or COVID-safe messaging through that as an overlay is very, very simple. I think that the next thing about that is that clients and venues must work together. to accept that both of them have responsibilities towards clients to keep them safe, and to provide an environment that is not only safe but conducive.
And you've been open for a while now, and are you seeing that play out at the moment, that collaboration between the venues, the clients and everybody that's involved?
Absolutely. Our first stand-up business networking event that we took on after reopening was held with a large business organisation, and their commitment to COVID safe was, exemplary, really. And it made our lives that much easier as a venue. However, there are also those clients who haven't yet really had to take this on in an event space, and venues are really upskilling themselves to take on that responsibility and to lead clients through that process.
So that's something that you see as the National Wine Centre as your responsibility to take that on so that it's not as overwhelming for the people that are coming into your space?
I think that risk management is something that venues do as a matter of course. This is just another layer of it, to be perfectly honest, and as with all aspects of risk management for events, we're happy to take that on for clients.
So a bit of brutal honesty for you then. What are some of the common mistakes that you're seeing from the clients that are coming into your venues?
Oh, the biggest one, Nick, would be paper-based registration. There are so many technological solutions in the market right now for all hospitality sectors, but particularly for business events. The use of a QR code to move people through quickly is important. Queues are bad in a COVID-safe environment. You don't want people lining up. You don't want people having to take time to get through. You don't want multiple contact points. A simple scan of a QR code that allows somebody to come in, that provides strong contact tracing, that's really important, I think.
Well, thanks, Jason. It was great to have you here this morning. Really appreciate your time. We're now going to go to a poll, which we've got for everybody, and it's going to come up on your screen shortly. If we can encourage everybody to spend a few seconds there and completing that. The question there is, were you aware of South Australia's response to COVID? We'll give everybody just a few more seconds to complete that. And thank you very much. Well, next in the hot seat, we've got Melissa Dunbar from Big Fish Events. Melissa, it's great to have you with us here this morning. Thank you so much for your time. Can you tell us a little bit more about what clients can expect in hosting a business event in South Australia?
Look, I think one of the most important things is that they understand that there are experts here to help them. And whilst, yes, it's been a really tricky time for us in the last 6 months with adding new risks, we need to remember that your event managers deal with risks every day of the week. This is a new one, and it's a big one, and it's an ever-changing one, but still, there's a capacity to come into South Australia to be able to go directly from your hotel, from the airport to your hotel. We can manage all of your functions in regards to whether it be a conference, business events, galas, whatever you're doing, and your social activities, all in one sort of little area, really, if you don't need to go out of that. But of course, South Australia does have some restrictions lifted because we are COVID-free here. So there's probably a little bit more that you can do here than you can in any other city. And we can get you back to the airport safely, or you can go back into the regions or back to work wherever you've come from.
That must be a huge relief for a lot of people listening online at the moment in terms of that ability to hold an event with someone else taking over a lot of that responsibility. I fear that there is an element of the people on the other side of the camera at the moment hearing about everything that needs to happen, and it could be quite overwhelming and quite a few barriers put up.
Yeah, I think fear is the word that you've mentioned there. Now, rest assured, we've read the hundreds and hundreds of pages of documentation that you need to read. We know what the law says, we know what the restrictions mean, we also know what the recommendations are. So if you do have somebody there to help and support you, our job is not only to bring your story or your brand to life and to make sure that you've got a fantastic guest experience, but to take the risk away and the fear away. So at Big Fish Events in particular, we've developed our own step back program, which is segmented into 6 areas, and from there what we've done is made sure that all of the COVID components are taken care of. Really easy to see, really transparent, and we actually have a management process to be able to document all of that. So it includes all the government restrictions, contact tracing and social distancing and so forth, but it just ensures that the client has something that they can take back as part of their record keeping. If their OH&S team or their HR team needs to get involved, or even just for senior management, they can just be rest assured that we can eliminate the fear based on actually going through a documented process and ensuring that we get everything right from A to Z for them.
It sounds like you've replaced that fear with trust, and trust in what you're delivering, which is really encouraging.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the end of the day. You know, our job is to ensure that clients really are there to attend to their guests and their clients and their customers, and leave all of the organisation, often just even the organisation of an event becomes overwhelming, recognising that it is an expert set of skills. And I think times like this, when risks are high, that experts just really, alleviate that fear in particular, and make sure that you're allowed to really get on and do what you want to do, delivering your event, and not have to worry about, has something been taken care of? Has somebody checked that? Has somebody cross-checked that? Our step-back system actually does that for you.
Yeah, brilliant. So as someone that's got offices interstate at the moment, what do you think Adelaide is uniquely positioned for at the moment?
Oh, the fact that we're open, in a way. I heard the other day that, so Melbourne is where we have one of our offices. I heard the other day that they were working on a program for a 20-minute suburb. Now, in Adelaide, South Australia, we're often referred to as the 20-minute city, and that's a real positive at this point in time. The COVID capability and the job that the state government, health, and the entire population has made the effort with, but also to making sure that we can take you from the beach to the city, to the hills, to wine regions, to international zoos, to art galleries, museums, and again, all within 20 minutes. But that's being able to expose so much more and be able to experience so much more as a client, whether you're, again, local or you're bringing certain people into the state.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of diversity to experience in 20 minutes, and you didn't even mention the wineries in that.
No, well, that's exactly right, because there are wine regions whether you go south to the beach, where there are wine regions whether you go east to the hills, whether you go north to, so there are there are inner city wine regions. There's some really famous brands that we all know of that are literally between 10 and 20 minutes away from the centre of the city. So there's an enormous amount to experience here in Adelaide. I mean, I've lived in and worked in a number of places around the world, and I've often said that if people think that Adelaide's a little boring, you might be a little boring yourself, because there's so much to actually do here, so much to uncover, and being able to do it in a COVID-safe way in particular at this point in time is really, really important.
Thanks, Melissa. It was great to have you. Next in the hot seat is Rupert Hallam from Hilton Adelaide. Rupert has spent a considerable amount of time overseas in the Asia-Pacific region. Hilton Adelaide, like many venues across Australia, has recently reopened its doors. So Rupert, welcome. I guess first question for you is how good is it being open?
It's a fantastic feeling being open. We opened originally on November the 5th, 1982, and we reopened on the 12th of October at 12 noon 2020. So it is fantastic. It's great to see all of the team back. We've been shut 6 months by the time we've reopened. So 3rd of April we closed, 12th of April, 12th of October we reopened. The team is starting to come back. We're getting the hotel ready for reopening, deep cleaning. We've got a brand standard called Clean Stay, so we're bringing the hotel up to the Clean Stay Hilton Global Standard, and it is just fantastic to see all the team back with their smiley faces ready to welcome delegates and guests.
I can tell by the smile on your face, it is certainly exciting times. Now, you spent previously to Adelaide, you spent a fair bit of time in the Asia-Pacific region, which gives you a bit of a broader insight into how Adelaide is positioned compared to some of the Asia-Pacific regions. What do you think that's going to mean for Adelaide's eventual recovery?
Adelaide is in a unique position. We haven't had a community transmission since the 20th of March. If I look across Asia Pacific, and one of my last roles was Vice President of Sales for Asia Pacific, so I'm still connected within the Hilton network across the region. And if you look at China, where it all started, they are now coming back. The occupancy levels we're seeing there are northwards of 60%. So they were, 3 or 4 months ahead of us. So hopefully, by the end of the year, we can at least start to see some recovery. On our first day at the moment, we've got 27 rooms booked. That weekend coming up, straight after that, we've got around 90 rooms. So what's happening is we're seeing a shift in business. We are actually at the moment seeing a shift into the leisure business on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday, which is away from Hilton's norm in Adelaide anyway, of the corporate and meetings business. But we are seeing great demand in that meetings business. There is pent-up demand for people to come back and meet face-to-face. And with the opening of the New South Wales borders only a week or so ago, that's going to generate even more demand. And we are seeing a lot more prospects coming through the books to build up that base on our books until the end of the year. And then hopefully by July next year, international flights will resume and we'll see the international delegates pick up as well. But like most of Adelaide, our business is predominantly domestic. And across Australia that's true, apart from maybe some of the resort hotels that we have. So because we're relying on that domestic business, it gives us good, strong hope that that demand will come back domestically prior to that international coming back in July.
Well, you're talking a lot to domestic audience right now. What would be your message to them over the next 6 to 12 months?
Come and visit Adelaide, book your meetings here. As I said, we're in a unique position, no transmission since the 20th of March, and the government have done a really, really good job on controlling it and quarantining the business that comes into Adelaide. So it's a safe environment. We've got a great team here, not just at Hilton Adelaide, but Team Adelaide. We all come together, so anything that they need, we can be flexible on and help them to book their meeting or their congress or their convention into the Adelaide hotels and the meeting facilities of Adelaide.
Yeah, great. So that sounds really good. So what does that mean from Hilton in Adelaide in hosting a safe business event?
Well, we've got the Hilton Global product called Hilton Clean Stay, which is for our rooms product. So we've removed all of the collateral, the touch collateral into the rooms. We've got digital key in place here at Hilton Adelaide, which means actually guests and delegates can check in and go straight to their room using just their digital phone or iPhone, which is great. Now, as well as that, we've got a product called Event Ready, which is the equivalent of Clean Stay for our rooms, but for our meeting spaces. So basically, we deep clean all the meeting spaces, we seal them like we do the bedrooms, and then when the event starts, the organiser will break that seal and go into the meeting room. And then during the breaks, we'll also clean the room, reseal it, and the client and the customer will go back into that room. So, I mean, we've got a lot of spaces here at the Hilton Adelaide. We've got the ballroom, which will normally take about 500, depending on the COVID situation, is down to about 50% of that. So the ballroom will take about 250, 260 people. And we've got a myriad of breakout spaces and private function areas, as well as restaurants as well. So pretty much anything that we did prior to COVID, we can do now, but in reduced numbers. And we've also got the ability to do hybrid meetings as well, whereby we can have a meeting in Hilton Adelaide, and that meeting can be beamed, for want of a better word, into Sydney or Brisbane or global as well. So they can be in Sydney and the meeting can happen in Adelaide. So we've got a space for everything and everyone, really. So come on down to Hilton Adelaide.
Well, thank you very much, Rupert. I really appreciate you joining us here this morning. Our next guest is Dreiger from the Adelaide Convention Centre, this fantastic venue that we find ourselves in this morning. Erin, welcome here this morning. You have been hosting COVID-safe events now for a while. What does this look like?
Yeah, absolutely. We're really lucky. We've hosted 52 events between us opening again in August and now in October, and got another 88 confirmed events on the books between October and December. So really well versed in operating under a COVID-safe event environment. The majority of those events are local business. From a national events context, we really need those national borders to open to allow us to start to continue to move through national events. But really lucky and fortunate in South Australia that we're working towards a 2 square metre per person capacity, which really does give us the opportunity to host those larger scale events, which is fantastic. I guess in terms of what do those events look like, it's really about working to our COVID-safe protocol guidelines, which we've developed to help our clients work through this process and really understand their requirements, what we're able to do as a venue, and also, you know, the requirements of the delegates on site as well. Today, Connect SA is a really good example of how we've seen, you know, people move through the venue in a timely and responsible way, looking at digital signage throughout our venue that highlights the requirements of the delegates in terms of a 1.5 1.5 metre social distancing. We're working with floor decals as people move through the venue to indicate how they should be looking and moving throughout those venues. Also an increased presence when it comes to cleaning and hygiene. You'll notice hand sanitisers around the venue to give people that sense of safety as they move through not only their event but through general event areas in the convention centre and bathroom facilities as well. You'll see signage that represents capped capacities in lifts, stair areas, and also through foyer spaces and also bathroom facilities also. Also looking at the development in South Australia is the essence of a COVID safe marshal, which we've been really key in identifying as something that's been a really good mover in terms of generating those events moving forward and making people feel safe and comfortable when they're actually in an event environment. So our COVID safe marshal has really been that person to facilitate COVID safe practices throughout the event, but also gives delegates and also clients on site a voice and someone to go to answer those questions if they've got any concerns throughout their whole period of the event. So the COVID Marshal's actually been a really great implementation for us as part of our working COVID safe plan.
That sounds fantastic. It sounds like you've got a lot of experience there that you've already had and future bookings which are sensational. Everybody loves those at the moment. But from a client's perspective and a delegate's perspective, how much of what you're talking about today it has to be taken on as a responsibility from the client and the delegate? Is that something that they need to factor into their planning, or is that something that you take on that responsibility for?
Absolutely, Nick. Look, we absolutely guide the client through that process. We're in constant communication with them from an event planning perspective in terms of changes. We have had a number of changes even through the period since we've been open in August. So it's up to our event planning team to move the client through that, to communicate effectively and really have that open line of communication so that clients feel safe and comfortable to be talking to their delegates at the end of that chain. So, a concern that clients have had has really been around capacity and what does that mean for their event and can we facilitate it and what does that look like? And we're very lucky, as I mentioned before, that in South Australia we have a 2 square metre per person capacity, which actually for us as the convention centre really gives us a whole lot of flexibility in that. So we haven't had to not host any events due to our capacity requirements, and really looking at just effective spacing within exhibitions and plenary seating and what that looks like just to maintain COVID safe seating, but still able to facilitate those events. And we will guide those clients through that process in terms of what they need to do from a food and beverage perspective. Also when it comes to bump in, so exhibitions in and out, the requirements for that. We're allocating additional space and additional timings to allow that to take effect and allow that to happen. So the onus is on us as the venue to tell you as the client what it is that we need from you to maintain a COVID safe event. A huge thing for us has been contract tracing and something through virtual and online registration processes. We're able to capture that data and then we've got that on site. So that's something that we're working with clients on maintaining that data.
Yeah, great. So you've obviously had some experience with some events that have been held to date. You've got another 88 on the books, which is exciting. What does next year look like for you? What does 2020 look like?
Absolutely. So our pipeline for 2021 is really quite strong. We've, from a national perspective, we've moved through recontracting and repurposing 98% of our national and international conference business into future years. So for us as South Australia, we're in a COVID safe environment at the moment and we really see that, continuing as we move forward, and we've been able to maintain and hold on to that level of business. So our 2021 is actually very strong. And that plays a huge part not only in the recovery of the Adelaide Convention Centre but also in the recovery of South Australia, our hospitality industry, and also looking at our hotel sector and what that means. So we've got a series of international conferences in the back end of 2021 which we're looking at transitioning into a hybrid model at this point in time so that our national and our local delegation can still meet and host on site, but obviously looking at a virtual context from an international perspective. Our first international meeting is actually being held in January in 2021. So that for us is a huge opportunity to showcase what South Australia can do from a COVID safe events destination perspective and really look to tap into those international delegates that while they can't be here, we're working with them to tap them in virtually, but also looking at a national and local base of delegates meeting physically on site.
Yeah, great. So it sounds like you've had quite a few experiences there in being able to host events. Is there anything specific that you've seen to date that you'd like to mention, or that you think that you as a venue has learnt from?
Yeah, absolutely. We, in terms of looking at events that we've held over the past couple of months, one of our event organisers was a New South Wales-based exhibition company, and while borders remain closed, we weren't able to obviously work with the client here on site to deliver their event. So the staff and the exhibitions team at the Adelaide Convention Centre actually worked with that client to deliver their event on behalf of them while they're here in the destination. So while the client couldn't be on site, our Adelaide Convention Centre exhibitions team executed the event on behalf of the client. So that was the Adelaide Wedding Expo, which we had just a few Saturdays and Sundays ago. We had 1,700 people through the doors over that weekend. So a really good indication that the market is ready to get back into events and really looking to be an event space again. We looked at really key, I guess, identifiers in terms of COVID safe practices. We had single entry and single exit for delegate flow. We had a COVID marshal on site, which also maintained physical distancing for people moving through the exhibition. We provided a seating area within the actual exhibition space itself for people to sit and eat and drink comfortably, as that was a requirement at the time. And we also working with each of our exhibitors to get them in and bump them in physically safe, and obviously from a COVID safe perspective as well. Some of the learnings from that really were the communication and talking to the client and talking to the exhibitors and talking them through the process that we need to go through as a venue to operate in a COVID safe way. And we found through effective communication we were able to cover off all of those COVID safe requirements and operate a really safe, fantastic event that people were happy to be part of.
Well, thanks, Erin. It sounds like a great event, 1,700 people. What an exciting time, and I know that you're getting excited about those kind of numbers for the future years, so well done again. Well, that brings us to a close here this morning. We really appreciate your time. Now, before you go, we do have a poll coming up, which we'd like to put up on the screen now for you. That question, when are you currently planning your next business event to occur? If we can quickly get everybody there to answer that one. We'll give it a few more seconds. And if anybody at this stage does have a burning question, certainly shoot that through on the chat function, and we'll get to that shortly. So again, thank you to all our guests that have been here in the hot seat this morning. It's been great to learn what's going on in the South Australian business event community. I'm going to pass now back to Katrina, who's joined with our CEO, Damien Kiddo, on the exhibition floor of Connect Safe. Katrina.
Thank you, Nick, and what a fabulous webinar you put together for our virtual audience. As you can see, I'm joined again with Damien Kiddo, who was one of our panellists before you went to your webinar, and we have moved. Damien, we're on the exhibition floor at the Convention Centre, and there is a bit of a buzz here, isn't there?
It's an incredible buzz, and I think it just shows how meeting face-to-face human behaviour is to do exactly that. Again, we've all been meeting online, but this just validates the pent-up demand of meeting face-to-face. That's how we conduct business, is through person-to-person, and just really excited to see this massive turnout here today.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I do want to shout out to the people that have joined us virtually and maybe are in places like Melbourne where things are very different. So we are sending you, lots of thoughts and do hope that things will be able to ease there soon. Damien, we probably have taken for granted in South Australia and in Adelaide the restrictions that we haven't had. So to be able to put on this event today for people interstate that may not appreciate what we can do, and looking forward into states like Melbourne in the future to navigate how we have to be able to open up, what can we do in South Australia that has made it a lot easier to put this on?
Katrina, we're very lucky, and again, as you said, our viewers online across the various jurisdictions of Australia, the principles in terms of being open is very different, and that's where we're very fortunate here in Adelaide and South Australia that lifestyle is almost back to normal. It's been like that since July. The restaurants are busy, the venues are becoming busier, the retail outlets are becoming busier. So our recovery absolutely is gradual and it's step by step, but there's cautious positivity about the future, but I would absolutely stress everyone is still operating and working to a COVID-safe approach, which is all about distancing, it's all about hygiene, and it's all about tracing as well. And that's what we're trying to really get across today with the Connect Safe event, is that it's actually not that challenging if you follow the key principles to deliver a really safe event. And here in Adelaide and South Australia, we are confident, and when the opportunity is right for our guests to travel from around Australia into Adelaide and South Australia, please be confident that we've got an amazing Team Adelaide behind us, ready to work for you really hard, but importantly, deliver a safe event.
Yeah, well said. In terms of the physical attendance here, I know in planning for this there was probably a little bit of concern, will people turn up? And we talked about it on the panel about people being nervous to attend events like this, because for a lot of us still in South Australia, this could be for some of us our first event and our first exhibition to visit. Are you happy with how things have turned out today?
The turnout is outstanding. We've got around 250 people involved with the event. That's a mixture of online, and thank you to everyone around Australia that's joining us online. But again, you can see behind us here, Katrina, the buzz in the room with the exhibition. And also we've got around 60 local clients. Our team have worked really, really hard over the last couple of months to try and really generate some positivity and confidence in the local events and functions sector. And I'm really proud of what we've been able to achieve, because we've had a 90% turnout. So that is absolute hats off to not only Team Adelaide and the exhibitors here, but it's about the clients. And again, it just reinforces the human behaviour. People want to meet and greet in person if they can. And again, we're very lucky here in Adelaide and South Australia that we're able to do that. And again, Connect Safe is all about demonstrating what's happening behind us. People are cautiously optimistic and confident. We're working to the three key principles. And as everyone can see online, we've got business now taking place behind us.
Yeah. Was there any challenges? Was it difficult to get people to exhibit? Was their confidence a little bit low, or were people really keen to be involved?
It's a really challenging environment. The South Australian industry is worth $2 billion. That closed down overnight towards the end of March. And it's only been in the last month or two where there's been a little bit of confidence and momentum. So did we have 60 people, 70 people register within a nanosecond? No, we had to work really hard through, using the right sort of tone and timing and communication to demonstrate this is what we're trying to achieve. We're in it together. We want to work with everyone in the industry and locally to demonstrate how we can deliver a COVID-safe event. And so it was a gradual build-up. And I would have to say, still not everyone is back full-time in their job. People, unfortunately, are still stood down. There's still a lot of devastation across the industry, without a doubt, and that includes across Australia as well. But gradually it's coming back, and let's face it, local business is probably where we're at for the rest of 2020. 21, we've got a good calendar of events. Really proud of what the Adelaide Convention Bureau team has done. We worked really hard as a strategy to postpone 85% of the business that was due to be held this year, around $200 million worth, into 21 and into 22. So 21, for all the wrong reasons, should be a great year. What I'm really concerned about, though, is the economic impacts of COVID. And that's where, again, great venues like the Convention Centre, other venues, other suppliers here in Adelaide and South Australia, but also through federal government funding, state government funding, of which we have as well, we can really help the sustainability events to ensure they're successfully delivered in 2021.
Well, thank you, Damien. There was a few questions on the panel earlier. They were really great questions about venue-specific, asking about floor plans, numbers, gala dinners. What would you suggest people could do to get some of those answers in relation to finding out more about how to really start planning their events?
Hopefully our viewers online already have heard of the concept Team Adelaide. And if you haven't, I'm going to talk a lot about it now. we're here to work with you. It's about working together, supporting to ensure the success of your event, but the sustainability and success of the business events industry domestically. But if you've got any technical queries, please work with your event organiser, please work with the venue. It's critically important that you do. Venues have got COVID management plans approved, they've got COVID safe plans approved. What do I mean by that? You need to have a COVID safe plan in place. The Government of South Australia, Health SA, for events up to 1,000 people. Beyond 1,000 people, there's a management plan. So using the convention centre as an example, all of that is in place. So again, we're all here to help and support. Don't think you're alone at all. We're here to help. What we will do beyond this Connect Safe event, we're going to run the Destination South Australia event in February. The dates are the 10th to the 13th of February. And again, it's about providing confidence that this is where you can hold your business event here in Adelaide and South Australia. And so what is Destination South Australia about? It's about understanding our supply chain. It's about the venues, it's about the organisers, it's about the social venues, it's about the AV companies. The whole supply chain exhibits at Destination South Australia. So it's an incredible opportunity because it's early in February, as I just said, where our great clients across the country, if they can, would be absolutely delighted to host them for Destination South Australia so they can see where Adelaide and South Australia is at for business events. But importantly, Katrina, we've got new venues, particularly new hotels coming online. So it's not only sort of revisiting our old friends and products and suppliers, but there's a lot of new and great opportunity coming online in Adelaide and South Australia as well. So please visit Destination South Australia the 10th to the 13th of February, and we'd be delighted to showcase Adelaide and South Australia to you.
Oh, Damien, well done for you and your team for launching and announcing that today. I'm very excited, and I'll make sure those dates are in my calendar. And please, as Damien's mentioned, pop them in yours and make sure this is the destination you can be, the 10th to the 13th of February. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this event today, that for our online audience, we have something very special. We have a prize for someone that is online, and that will get you to Destination South Australia. It includes accommodation. It includes a ticket to the event. So in my hot little hand here, the winner of this is Leanne Carter. Drum roll, Leanne Carter, you are the winner from the Tax Institute. And the Adelaide Convention Bureau will be in touch shortly to organise your prize and for you to visit Adelaide soon. So Damien, I want to thank you. Thank you for the time today. Thank you for your team for putting on such a great event. To the crew, the sponsors, thank you for making sure that it has run incredibly smoothly and for including this wonderful online virtual audience. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Katrina. And again, thanks to Team Adelaide and the local market here, but particularly to everyone online. We've had a fantastic turnout. So thank you so much for your engagement and support. And please, if you do elect Adelaide and South Australia to host your business event in 2021 or 22, please understand the Adelaide Convention Bureau team is there to help and support. But we've got an incredible Team Adelaide who's absolutely desperate and keen to help and support you deliver a really sustainable but successful event in 21 and beyond.
Thank you, Damien. And thank you all for attending today. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.